Okay, hey everyone, this is Carroll Moon with KidFit. I'm here with Gabe Infante, who's the head coach at St. Joseph's Preparatory School in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We're going to have Gabe introduce himself in just a second, but briefly I wanted to tell you about KidFit. And our job at the KidFit charity is to mentor kids and to give them opportunities that they otherwise wouldn't have using sports as a conduit. Lots of kids don't have an opportunity to go to camps and they don't have access to good training. And then a lot of kids who are qualified or talented enough to be on travel teams and those sorts of things don't have an opportunity because of funding. And so our aim is to make that kind of stuff available to everybody. If you can, subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch more of these great role model videos with people like Gabe. And you can see all of our Twitter and Instagram stuff there. But let's get into the fun stuff. Gabe, thank you so much for joining us. And can you tell me a little bit about your playing career?
Sure, Carol. I was a three-sport athlete in a large public high school in North Jersey, Memorial High School in West New York, New Jersey, that's situated on the Palisades between the George Washington Bridge and the Lincoln Tunnel. I was fortunate enough to have scholarship offers to play baseball and football in college. I chose football. And I played my playing career at the College of the Holy Cross in Worcester, Massachusetts. I went there as a quarterback, and like most great high school quarterbacks, I played defense in college. So, had a very good career there, and then came home and went to law school and started coaching pretty much as soon as I got home.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And how about coaching career? You guys have had a ton of success. You've been National Coach of the Year and all of this. Can you tell me, I know you're a humble guy, but can you tell me a little bit about what you've had going on there with coaching?
Yeah, well, I've been coaching. I'm going into my, I believe it's my 24th season now as a coach. This will be my 11th season as a head coach. Just completed my 8th season at St. Joseph's Prep, where we finished 13-1 and came in as the runner-up in the 6A state classification. Started my career where I played, and I've coached in public and private schools. I've had the great fortune of coaching 3 U.S. Army, U.S. national teams, and 2 U.S. Army All-American teams. I was the head coach of the U.S. Army All-American team in 2014. I was the head coach of the U-17 team last January in Dallas. So I've had great fortune of coaching some great players. We've won 3 of the last 5 state titles in Pennsylvania. We've had several top 10 finishes since I've been here. I've worked at some of the more premier private high schools around the country, in the country, with Bergen Catholic and Paramus Catholic also being perennial powers. So, been very fortunate to coach at some great schools, work with some great people, and obviously coach some great kids, both, at the schools where I worked and these different all-star showcase teams. So been very, very fortunate.
Yeah, that's awesome, and just amazing the opportunities that you've got. And I know we've been lucky enough to bring my son to a couple of your camps up there, and so I'm grateful for everything you're doing. So what we're hoping to do is tell people, let role models like yourself tell folks about themselves. Can you tell me about why Jesus is so important to you?
Well, in a lot of ways, either from a personal perspective or a professional perspective, obviously coaching at a Catholic high school, a Jesuit high school, the Ignatian philosophy is something I believe very strongly in. I talk about Jesus to our players in multiple ways. From a very practical standpoint with our guys, I tell our kids that from a leadership perspective, that Jesus was the greatest leader we've ever had in the history of mankind. And that model of leadership is a servant leader model, so you don't need to look much further than Jesus to talk about how you lead people. And Jesus cared for his people, for his flock, for his followers. And so if you're going to be a great leader for us in our school community, in our regular community, in our program, then we think that he is the ideal person to follow and to model our behavior after. Because it really was about serving those that you lead. So from that perspective, it's been very important for me to share that with our players. For me personally, I grew up in a very spiritual household. My faith is something that's very important to me. I draw great strength from it. I think, most successful coaches will tell you that there's a spiritual aspect to what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that's a very big part of how I coach, who I am as a person. And so, my personal relationship with my God is very important to me. He's kind of like my lighthouse in the storm, so to speak. And, he is where I draw my strength from. He's my well. And I couldn't imagine doing this job and not, having a connection to Jesus and to my faith. I couldn't imagine that I could do this job effectively, without that.
Okay. That's awesome, man. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And tell me about football. I mean, it's been such a big part of your life, and I've had the pleasure of talking to you a lot, but these folks who are watching this haven't. Why is football so important to you?
Well, I think like Jesus, football saved my life. When I look back on my life, football has given me so much. The most meaningful relationships in my life have come from football. Football provided me with an education. It provided me with an outlet when I was a young man and I lost my father young. It was a great outlet for me in that way. It's taught me so much about myself. And as a coach, it's allowed me to share myself with others. And football is a unique sport in a sense where, a lot of sports are considered team sports. A lot of sports are considered individual sports. But there's a great ebb and flow in football from being a team player to the personal challenges of the game. And I do believe it's the greatest game a young man or young woman can play, because the adversity and the physical challenges that a young person faces in football are real. You have to confront fears, real, both physical and emotional or mental. And in dealing and facing those fears, we grow. So there's just so many things to football from a practical, tactical standpoint to a spiritual aspect that I think I would not be the man I am today without football. I would not have the things that I have. I would not have the relationships I have. I would not have the perspective on life that I have if it wasn't for the game of football, both from coaching and playing it. I owe so much to it in terms of my personal growth.
That's fantastic, man. And how about the combination of Jesus and football? I know you guys do service trips and that kind of thing, and the two together are important to you. Can you tell me about that?
Well, yeah. I mean, for me, I think kids love to play sports. To them, it's kind of like a religion. And I think, from my experiences, young men that I work with sometimes struggle to understand their faith. And for me, football is a great way to bridge the gap for them. Football is something they do. It's not who they are. The vast majority of our guys will not make a living with football. But I think what we do really well is connect the spirituality, the faith part of it, with the football part of it. And we can help, God and Jesus enter into their hearts through the game. Mm-hmm. I try and attach, a lot of aspects of my faith through the game of football. And I think that's a really good way to help a kid understand things. We get some very talented football players, and even the most talented young men that we get suffer from a crisis of confidence. And a lot of confidence is knowing you can do something, right? So how do you prove to someone that they can do something that they've never done before? Well, that's very similar to faith. How can I prove to you, that God exists? Right. And so one of the things we tell our kids is, it's more important what you believe than what you can prove. So when we model for our kids our beliefs, and we're able to show them how powerful a belief can be, and how oftentimes it's, what you can prove to them is irrelevant, but what you believe can carry you. That's faith. That's faith for me. And I can't prove to you God exists, but my belief is so strong that I can connect those dots for you and hopefully help you, help our kids, work through that, because they're going to need their faith in their life, right? At some point, your education, the money, everything else that's tangible is not going to be enough. You're going to be faced with some crisis in your life where the only thing you're going to have is your faith. And, you can't just pick up the phone and call God when you haven't had that. So it's important to have those conversations with God. Some people call it prayer. I call it conversations, right? Prayer is nothing more than a dialogue with God. And it's important to make sure that, you're always maintaining that relationship, so the day that you need him most, he's there for you. And that starts now. So football is a great way to do that.
That's awesome. And the last question I've got for you, and I know you're all about helping kids and helping parents and talking to them about how they raise their children and using football. What is your message that you want to give to kids and or parents who are going to watch this?
I think we are at a very important time in the history of youth sports. When I think of how I grew up where recreational sports was everything. I played at the rec of my town. The town funded all the programs. If I wanted to play baseball or basketball or soccer, right, my parents didn't have to pay for me to play. And when you look at the model in today's America of, youth sports, it's a pay-to-play model.
Right.
For a kid to play soccer or lacrosse, you have to pay. Travel teams, right? It's expensive for a parent today, to get their kid to be able to participate in some sports. And so, that's a challenge for us. I almost feel like we've exploited youth sports and we've really limited access, to probably the kids who need it the most. So those are the kids I worry about. And I think what you're doing with your organization is phenomenal, because there are a lot of inner city kids. There are a lot of kids who come from single parent households where parents have to make a decision between having their child participate or putting food on the table. And so my message to parents would be, get behind organizations like yours that are being very creative and innovative in trying to bridge the gap.
Yeah.
Because it's the most important thing a young person can do is participate in team sports, or to be around, good coaches and good mentors. The biggest challenge for me as a coach today is parents. We've perverted sports, where now we think, it's not about what we get out of it in terms of how it builds character and integrity and the lessons we learn. It's about what it can do for me financially, educationally, right? So, we've diminished the value of what sports can do for us as people. And our society needs good people now more than ever.
Right.
We need people of faith. We need people of integrity and character. And those are the things I think are somehow being perverted. So, I think we have to get back to simple values when it comes, to sports and kids playing. And so I think, parents have to lead the charge on this. We need to go back to basics. And, I'd like for parents to think about how it will form their children in a more complete manner, not whether it's going to get them a scholarship somewhere or whether they're going to get, accolades or recognition, right? I think it's a very important part of building a complete human being. And we got to get back to that.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Absolutely love that. And I just want to thank you on behalf of myself and KidFit and every kid and parent that watches this thing. Thank you for investing the time, and thank you for everything you're doing for youth sports, for high school kids, and everything that you're doing. If you want to connect with Gabe, he's at prepfootball.org. And Gabe, thanks a ton.
Thanks, Carol.